Here are the wealthiest people in human history, and how they were able to generate such vast wealth. Nicholas Romanov, also known as Nicholas II. The last Russian emperor, king of Poland, and Grand Duke of Finland, he was known in the Russian Orthodox Church as Saint Romanov the Passion Bearer. He ruled the Russian Empire 1894 to 1917. In 1916, his net worth was nearly 900 million, which when adjusted for inflation is 300 billion. This massive wealth mainly comes from the land, along with the gold, silver, copper, coal, and lead within it. The Tsar spent great sums of money on palaces in St. Petersburg and Moscow, along with jewelry, gold, and art. He's known for spending outlandish amounts of money on custom uniforms, which he found much pleasure in showing off. Andrew Carnegie. An American business magnate, Carnegie forged his vast wealth in the U.S. steel industry in the late 19th century. He built Carnegie Steel Company, which he would go on to sell to J.P. Morgan for more than $303 million at the time. His peak net worth falls between 310 to upwards of 380 billion in today's dollars. He's famous for having given away 90% of his wealth to charities, foundations, and universities before his death in 1919. John D. Rockefeller. Dubbed the most productive man who ever lived, the oil tycoon controlled 90% of U.S. oil production for decades from the late 19th century to early 20th century. He was the richest man in the 20th century and is the richest American of all time, having earned over $1.5 trillion in his lifetime. His net worth was between 340 to upwards of $400 billion. In 1913, his wealth of $900 million at the time accounted for 3% of the U.S.'s total GDP that year. He was the first man in U.S. history to amass a fortune of $1 billion. He paid not to be drafted into the Civil War, a smart move. He built all the family mansions. He bought an estate in Ocean County and the Kykowit Estate in upstate New York. Rockefeller donated more than $500 million to various charities, inspired by Andrew Carnegie's stunning philanthropy. Jacob Fugger. The savviest businessman in the Holy Roman Empire, he gave out private loans to noblemen and clergy on top of being a prominent player in the textile industry. He provided loans to the royal house of Habsburg and helped fund Ferdinand Magellan's costly circumnavigation of the globe. He even lent money to the Vatican for the building of the St. Peter's Basilica and the Sistine Chapel. His vast wealth was approximately 400 billion when adjusted. He personally designed an exquisite mansion for himself full of Tuscan marble, water basins, and mosaics. His wealth accounted for 2% of Europe's GDP when he passed in 1825. Now this is where the list gets more speculative. I'd love to know how you interpret the next estimates in the comments below. Mansa Musa. Regarded by many as the richest man to ever live, Mansa Musa's wealth is incalculable. Despite this, there are numerous rough estimates putting him at around $415 billion today. Mansa Musa was the 14th century ruler of Mali, a resource-rich kingdom that stretched across Africa. He came to power in 1312 while Europe was battling various plagues, war, and famine. This created an opportunity for African nations to flourish. Mansa Musa held the world's most abundant stores of gold when the metal was in high demand. He conquered Timbuktu, a strategic trade city in Africa, among others. He's known for his flashy trip to Mecca in 1324, where he rode in with a caravan loaded with tons of gold on camels and horses. Rumor has it he built a mosque every Friday along the way. This man was so wealthy he single-handedly crushed the economy of Cairo from how many tons of gold he distributed during his trip. He drove inflation up so quickly the local economies collapsed. His wealth is considered incalculable, but estimates remain around 415 billion, and many regard Mansa Musa I as the wealthiest man on the planet. Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great became king of Macedonia at the age of just 20. In 331 BC, he defeated King Darius III, despite the odds being against him in the Battle of Gaugamela. He pocketed 3,000 talents of gold, with the entire haul worth about 2.8 billion today. He became infamous for never losing a battle. He was associated with great bravery and power. The estimates for his wealth vary wildly, with some estimates as high as 32 trillion. The most concrete agreements on his vast wealth seem to be between 500 and 620 billion in today's money. Catherine the Great. Catherine II, or more commonly Catherine the Great, ruled as Empress of Russia from 1762 until 1796. She was the country's last Empress regnant and Russia's longest ruling female leader. Catherine was inspired by ideas of the Enlightenment, so during her rule, Russia gained a higher emphasis on culture and the sciences. During this time, Russia became one of the great powers of Europe. Her empire was valued at nearly 5% of the global GDP. Her vast wealth is said to be the equivalent of 1.5 trillion today. King Solomon. King Solomon was a Jewish king regarded as the wisest and wealthiest ruler in the world. He received 25 tons of gold annually for 39 years plus taxes. His enormous wealth is difficult to calculate, but some historians agree on an estimate upwards of $2.2 trillion. Part of his immense wealth went towards building the first Jewish temple in Jerusalem. Augustus Caesar. Augustus Caesar appointed himself as the first emperor of the Great Roman Empire. He was given at least 10 million in gold coins from his uncle Julius Caesar, equal to 200 billion in today's money. Not bad at all for an inheritance. His conquests in Africa allowed him to personally own Egypt, which supplied food for half the empire. Most estimates place Augustus Caesar's unimaginable wealth as over $4.6 trillion. He spent 600 million silver denarii on public projects, which consisted mainly of infrastructure like roads, monuments, and temples. These were financed with the wealth of the empire as well as his personal wealth. He had the Theater of Marcellus, the Forum of Augustus, and the Temple of Mars altar built, among others. He also spent millions on entertainment like the chariot races and the gladiator fights, among other forms. He pumped $250 million a year into a personal army of 250,000 soldiers. Empress Wu. The wealthiest woman of all time is said to be Empress Wu, and she has a story that will blow your mind. Born Wu Zetian, she was the concubine to Emperor Taizong of Tang, and then to his son Emperor Gaozong. I'll let that sink in. Reportedly, Wu was ruthless in her pursuit of power in the Tang dynasty. She is said to have taken the life of her 1-week-old daughter and blamed it on Empress Wang, one of Gaozong's main consorts, though there is no way to confirm this. She successfully took out her competition for the emperor's affection and went on to be empress for 15 years during a time of deep expansion into Central Asia. She was the de facto ruler of China when the country accounted for 23% of the global GDP. The national wealth flourished in big part thanks to the trade of tea and silk with Western nations along the Silk Road. Although her immense wealth is incalculable, estimates value it at 16 trillion at her peak in today's dollars. Despite perceptions of her being schemy and conniving, she is credited with running the empire with great efficiency. Akbar I. Known commonly as Akbar the Great, he was the third emperor of the Mughal Empire from 1556 to 1605, during which time he ruled over 25% of the world's GDP at one point. His wealth is impossible to accurately pinpoint, but numerous estimates place its value at $21 trillion. Akbar the Great lived well, to say the least, building himself 3 astounding palaces, each decorated with plethoras of gold. The interiors were decorated with silk, marble, and lots of artwork. He spent millions on paintings, books, and music. Shenzong of Song. Shenzong of Song was the 6th emperor of the Song dynasty in China from 1067 to 1085. It was an abundant period where China became an economic superpower. He helped bring a period of high prosperity, peace, and economic growth. Some notable inventions in this period were movable type, gunpowder, and mechanical clocks. Policies were enacted that provided relief to the poorest of farmers. While his wealth is incalculable, many say his vast wealth was 30 trillion at his peak. It is estimated he controlled 30% of the global GDP. He lived in palaces that today are architectural landmarks. Most of his wealth was spent on bettering the lives of his subjects, but there isn't much on his personal life. He practiced Confucianism and was among the first proponents of a welfare system. Some say he lived a very modest life. Genghis Khan. Ruler of the Mongol Empire who conquered most of Eurasia, Genghis Khan's empire spanned 12 million square miles. He's known for being brutal, having reduced the world's population by roughly 10% in 20 years. Having conquered half of the known world, there's a general consensus placing his fortune upwards of a mind-boggling $100 trillion in today's money. He redistributed his wealth among his subjects, which included his many wives and numerous children. Are you surprised by any of these insanely wealthy individuals? Do you believe the estimates? Would you put them in a different order? Let me know in the comments below and I'll catch you in the next one.